Hey everyone, welcome to Wealth Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Reynolds, independent financial advisor and owner of Elevation Financial. Thanks for joining us today. I say us because I've got a co-host today. It's been a while since I had a co-host on, and I'm excited. It's fun to have company. So I'd like to welcome Dan VanDusen from Objective Wealth to join me as my co-host. Dan, what's up?
How you doing, Michael? Great to be
Great.
here. Excited. I think we have episode 100 today, I hear. So that's
I
excellent.
know. I thought this would make a great episode 100. Kind of a milestone for my podcast. And you've been on before, I know, as a group. You're part of my mastermind group, and we've all been on together. So this is kind of your second appearance, I think, on my humble show, which I appreciate. So thanks for coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. First time when you've moved it to the live format. So excited to be part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is fun, isn't it? So you're also a financial advisor. You're in Arizona. So tell us a little bit about your practice before we jump in.
Sure. I am based in Phoenix, Arizona, and kind of like you, Michael, I do service clients kind of around the country. I have most of my clients here in Phoenix, but I tend to focus on very similar model and mindset that you focus on, kind of fee-only financial planning. I'm also a member of many of the trade organizations, XY Planning Network, NAPFA, Financial Planning Association, and so forth. So that's what we focus on. I tend to focus on clients that are 40 and above, but I do have clients all the way down to their mid 20s. So kind of have a little bit of everything.
Right on. And I love being in the group with you and the others. We have 5 of us together that are in a mastermind group together, and you've all become, friends, trusted colleagues, advisors, people I love to. Every week when we meet, I look forward to that every week. Every Wednesday, it's fun because there's always new challenges we talk over together. It's just great to have the support. So really grateful you're in my mastermind network. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Likewise, it's whether it's a case study or just a challenge or success. It's always a good time to share.
Yeah, right on. So I wanted to invite you on because I loved a piece you published recently, and your title was a bit different. I think it was something. It was about financial lies, and I renamed it a bit. I called it 7 Lies We Tell Ourselves About Money, because you had 7 really interesting points that you published that I thought were really insightful and really common to so many of us. And I thought it'd be fun to talk through for our 100th episode, to kind of talk through these points and just kind of have a conversation about what we agree or disagree on or think about when these points come up. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of walk through these points together, these 7 financial lies that you published, and just talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think oftentimes everybody thinks of financial planning as just hard numbers and everything else. And I hope this gets into, as we'll talk about here shortly, just kind of a little bit more of the behavioral side, the softer side of finance. So
Get away from the
kind of
spreadsheet
exciting.
and
Yeah,
more on
absolutely.
the fluffy side of it. I always like to start with conversations like this. I like to approach it from a socially conscious standpoint to make sure that we understand that, behavioral finance advice is not always one size fits all. There's people that come from different backgrounds and privileges and situations, and the implications made with these don't always apply to everybody. So we're kind of in the assumption that if that's applies in different contexts, and these may not always apply. So these are kind of meant to be just thought provoking in general, but also I like to state that as a socially conscious context first. So the first point in your article was, I'll be happier when I have fill in the blank number of dollars. This is a big one for so many of us. Don't we always think that, hey, if I could just make $100,000 a year, or if I could just get this much money in the bank, or if I could just, win the lottery or whatever it is, then I'll be happy. But the data kind of shows otherwise, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I think the data shows that you set a goalpost and you may or may not achieve that goalpost, but oftentimes if you do, the next kind of goalpost is moved on, right? They keep moving. So whether it's an earnings number, like you said, a salary, a savings number, it's going to keep moving on you. So or you're not as happy when you get there as you thought you may be.
So what do you think? What do you think we can learn from this? I know that a lot of data shows that it's not so much about a number that in reality gives us satisfaction. It's more about the progress and seeing incremental progress toward our goals that gives us more fulfillment. Do you think that's true, or do you see that in your practice?
Yeah, I do. I think working with clients all the time on setting and achieving goals is much more valuable. We can kind of celebrate the wins as we kind of move through the calendar year, or quarter by quarter, or whatever kind of cadence we've set, and picking out those goals, seeing which ones we've done, checking them off the list is a lot of satisfaction, and moving on. And so kind of working together to find those realistic goals, whatever they may be. Like you said, it may be saving to get rid of a particular piece of debt, or maybe saving to buy that second home, if that's the goal you're going on, and somewhere in between. So I think the best way is checking off those goals.
Yeah. So the second one here, number 2, is I deserve it regardless of whether I can afford it.
Yeah, the you only live once kind of mentality,
YOLO,
right? Is
right?
saying, yeah. So the neighbors have it, or my friends have it, or darn it, I've worked hard. I'm going to spend the money on whatever that is, whether that's a nice meal out, a new kind of piece of clothing, or something, a jet ski. I don't know what your YOLO thing is, but it's I only live once. I'm going to afford it. I deserve it.
Yeah. So this is kind of a fun gray area for me, because on one hand, I think it's important to enjoy your money. I think it's important to, use your money for things that are fulfilling to you. But there's a spectrum. Obviously, you can save up for things, you can finance things, you can go into debt for things that's detrimental to your financial health, and it's always a spectrum. It's very rare you find black and white stuff in behavioral finance, right? I mean, I think the mindset to me is what's most important. It's the mindset of I deserve this, so I'm not going to pay any attention to the numbers or the math or the financial implications. I think it's different decisions make sense for different people, as long as you have the mindset that, hey, I'm setting up goals for myself that are reasonable. I'm not going to sacrifice things that are more important just for a quick kind of feel good purchase or something. That's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's the intention of it is going back to that first one we talked about, setting goals, buy them for it, and achieve those goals, but maybe just don't, make sure you put some parameters around it, and it makes sense.
So number 3 really speaks to my soul. Number 3 is the third lie on your list is I have strong financial willpower. How much time do we have to unpack this one?
Yeah, how long do we have today on this podcast? So
not long enough. So I'll start with me. I feel like we're both financial advisors. We're ideally thought of probably to have financial willpower, but I think all of us are subject to moments of financial weakness or challenge in some ways, and it manifests in different ways. And one of the things I see manifesting so often is everyone who knows me knows I'll put it mildly, I'm not a fan of credit cards. I don't like using credit cards. I don't like using debt, but credit cards especially, I try to encourage people to avoid. And one of the things that comes up most of all when people are using credit cards, for example, is they say, well, I pay it off every month. I'm responsible with it. I've got willpower. I'm not going to go into debt. And that may be true, but there's always data out there showing that, credit cards make you end up spending more because it feels less painful to spend the money. And that's there are many different examples, but that's one example I encounter a lot, where people say, well, I've got financial willpower. I'm not falling prey to the games and tricks of credit card companies. But the data shows otherwise. So do you think we're lying to ourselves a lot of times when we overestimate the amount of financial willpower we have?
Absolutely. I think that some of these merchandising and marketing and other geniuses that are out there are good at grabbing our attention, whether they're advertising the latest, the latest piece of clothing, or the fad, or electronic device, Apple or whatever. I think as we're recording this, Apple is releasing a bunch of new computers and so forth at the same time. And these types of marketing.
Appropriate.
Yeah. How appropriate, right? These type of marketing geniuses, are there to capture our attention and make us not have the willpower we thought we may have. And I agree, credit cards do enable additional spending. I think that if you're using a credit card, using a strong budgeting app, but I know you're a fan of YNAB, Michael, and some of the others out there can kind of combat that perhaps. But kind of combating those marketing geniuses is number one.
Yeah. I mean, because you're right. They have $1 billion of, or a gazillion dollars, because you know how much they have, but a gazillion dollars in marketing budgets here. And they know what they're doing. They know the scientific proven ways to get people to spend money. So I think what's important to understand from this is this particular lie really speaks to me because if we can learn to address this in ourselves, we can accomplish so much. Like if, for example, if I understand that my willpower is not what I think it is, and I overestimate it sometimes, I can make changes and adaptations in my life and my systems and my choices and behaviors that can help me have more success because I'm working around those limitations. So I think it's not just to poke fun at people, to say, oh, well, our financial willpower is not what you think it is. It's more to understand what the reality is of what we how we respond to money and how we relate to money so that we can get better at it. That's why I think it's important to understand that. So,
Yeah. And one piece of data that I found in the research to kind of talk through this is just, average credit card shopper is going to spend about 10% more than they would have without cash. And I think there's some data research to back that up. And so kind of going back to the numbers a little bit is just to prove the point is, data suggests you will spend more than you would with cash.
yeah. Yeah. I also like number 4 quite a bit, which is I'll save more later.
Mhm.
And I encounter this so often, especially I work with a lot of business owners, and I'm a business owner, so I can pick on other business owners. We business owners are really guilty of this, especially because we're like, well, I'm working on building my business. This is going to become my retirement plan. I'll save more later. Right now, I'm in kind of building mode. And often years go by, and you haven't gotten around to starting a real savings program or a contribution program to your retirement accounts or your investment accounts. So, what do you often see when working with people with the I'll save more later mindset? Is that pretty common?
It's very common, and it's so much more difficult later. So you're oftentimes your lifestyle maybe has crept up with your income as if it's risen throughout your career, and kind of taking a step back where you have to save more money at a later time to make up for potentially a lost decade or two, your 20s and 30s. So for example, you start saving in your 40s, it just makes a huge difference. And so it's easy to push it off. It's simple to push it off, but it's that much bigger of a leap when you do need to kind of really step up and kind of move forward. So I always go back to, the compound interest and how the natural wonder is. And, the earlier start, the less you ultimately will have to save later.
Yeah. And number 5 kind of goes with that. Number 5 is this lie is I have plenty of time to plan for my financial future and I don't need to think about it yet. That kind of goes hand in hand with the I'll save more later mindset, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Easy to procrastinate is kind of what I have in there, and super simple to just push it off. And, early in career, you may have student loan debt or other priorities, but this kind of goes back all the way to the number 1, where you need to define your goals within a financial plan, whatever that is, whether it's a simple, just couple bullet points you've put together, but kind of relating it back to what your goals are, and, don't wait and delay it to the future.
Yeah, when you show compound interest charts to people, it really is eye-opening. And I mean, as humans, we can't be blamed too much for putting this stuff off because, we're kind of wired to deal with what's in front of us, the fire to put out right in front of us at our job or, family situation or, the roof's leaking or whatever. There's always stuff in our current attention and we're kind of wired to deal with those things. And long-term planning I don't think it's really a strength of a human race, honestly. We're not really great at long-term planning, are we?
No, instant gratification is common, that endorphin push that it gives you is right there, and everybody likes it. So it's I 100% agree.
But those compound interest charts are really eye-opening because you look at, I forget the exact numbers they use, but it's like if you save a certain amount when you're young, and you can stop saving, and then the older person will start saving later in life, and they'll never catch up because the person that saved earlier in life, had the compound interest on their side, so they could stop contributing and just still far exceed someone that started later. And the compound interest visualizations are really, really eye-opening. So usually people either get super depressed or super excited when you see that because like, oh, great, I can start now. And the ones that get super depressed are like, oh man, I wish I'd done this in my 20s. So I try to encourage people to look at the bright side. Like you got to start somewhere, and starting now is better than starting 5 years from now. But compound interest really makes a difference. All right, number 6. This is kind of a fun one for me anyway. There is good debt and bad debt. This is considered a lie in your when you publish this, and you said there is good debt and bad debt. So do you believe there is good debt and bad debt? You think that's a lie?
No, it's a lie. I mean, debt is debt. I think there are different types of debt. I think there are, real bad debt, and then debt that can be considered mediocre, maybe for lack of a better word, right?
Not
So
quite as bad debt.
yeah, yeah. So it's I mean, ultimately, all debt will cost you money, right? There's going to be some type of interest rate. There's going to be some type of cost to debt. I do think that there are certain types of debt that are probably necessary and help you and allow you to buy things like real estate. It's a good example, but it's not all just considered good debt. I think it's important to understand that it's still debt. It's something to consider. Doesn't mean that you can't have it in your plan or part of your financial picture, but it's just important to understand that there is a cost to it.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit dangerous, in my opinion, to label debt as good debt. And it's
Hmm.
not to say that, debt is just awful. And if you have debt, you're a terrible person. Like, I'm not saying that, but I feel like if we start labeling good debt and bad debt, then we start to encourage debt. Like if we say, oh, well, a mortgage is good debt and, a car loan is good debt and student loan is good debt because it's investing in your future. That kind of gives us permission to throw caution to the wind and not even have any responsibility for the debt. I feel like it's like, oh, well, it's a good thing. So of course I'm going to just get more of it. Whereas if we labeled it more as, you know, debt that is harmful and debt that is maybe less harmful but necessary, those are, or maybe harmful is too strong a word, but debt that is necessary but hopefully avoidable. Like I think those are better ways to think of it because I don't really think any debt is necessarily good debt.
Yeah, I think it goes back again, and I'll kind of circle back to the beginning. Is it helping you achieve your goals or not,
Mm.
right? And your goals could be strictly numbers and financial. It could be lifestyle. It could be having fun with friends, family, whatever that is. But is it helping you achieve that? I think in kind of going towards um, those goalposts is important.
I also think it's important going back to thinking in a socially conscious context. I try really hard to make sure we don't make people feel bad about debt that was somewhat necessary or important at a stage in their life. Like, for example, student loans is a big topic of conversation. I know plenty of people that are in crazy amounts of student loan debt and they're in an occupation that does not have an equivalent income to pay it off. And, for some people, it's a matter of just simply making certain choices that, maybe weren't the greatest. For others, it could have been something in their life situation that made that necessary, or maybe they have maybe manageable student loan debt and they're going to pay it off, but they're struggling with it, and it's not a one size fits all. Sometimes that helps them get further ahead when they otherwise wouldn't be able to. So I think it's important going back to the idea of context, understand where everybody is starting from and kind of what privilege they have access to. But in general, I try to avoid debt. I just try to avoid it. I think it's best if we can avoid it. And look, I mean, it's hard to buy a house without a mortgage. That's very difficult. So, but at the same time, if you buy a house and get a mortgage, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, great, I've got a mortgage. Let me try to pay a little extra on it. Let me try to save up to maybe refinance to like a 15-year, get it paid off as soon as possible, keep the payment under control. Like you can really take steps to make it more contained and more productive debt than otherwise. And I think that's important to look at too.
100% agree. It's you're going to probably have some type of debt in your life, but just be smart, strategic about it. Don't spread that auto loan over 6 or 7 years like they may want to
Yeah.
encourage you to, things like that, right? And yeah, just don't do it just to get your payments low. Make sure you buy something you can afford, and the debt is smart, strategic, and goes back to your goals.
And everyone defaults to a 30-year loan because that's what mortgage lenders tell us to do. But I always encourage people, hey, try for a 15-year, like run your numbers based on shooting for a 15-year loan, and you'll probably buy a house that's more affordable for you and you'll pay it off sooner and you'll build equity faster. So even within the context of that debt, I like looking at different options beyond just the typical default 30-year mortgage. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with that?
I do. I have this conversation often, and I think it kind of goes back to, are you stretching out what you can afford? Sometimes I have, clients that go for a 30-year, but they can still afford the 15. And I think it kind of goes into what they're focusing on. But going to a 15-year mortgage, looking at the payments there, kind of keeps your home and lifestyle in check and allows you to focus on some of the other goals that you have as well, and not just be house poor.
Yeah. So your last point on these list of lies is wanting more is bad. So this is interesting. This is kind of
Yeah.
a lot to unpack in this one. Is wanting more bad?
No, I mean, I think we were critical, is critical for the, first six we've kind of talked about, and everybody may think, wow, this is, you guys are harsh. You guys are hard on us. Right. I think the last one is that, wanting more, achieving more, whatever that isn't bad. And so figuring out how to get to those goals, whether that's through career progression opportunities, additional income, less costs, but kind of again focusing on what's important to you and why you're getting there, and wanting those goals and having to achieve those is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I kind of read that as, the lie being wanting more money is bad. And there's so much head trash many of us have about money. All of us, I think, are prone to some of the head trash based on how we grew up and, their environment that shaped us and various life situations. And, I know people that, the phrase, limiting beliefs comes into play a lot, because some people have self-identified to me that they say, I didn't realize I had such limiting beliefs. I didn't realize I felt like I could make more money and feel good about it. And it's really exciting to see people when they kind of break through and say, well, I've been feeling like I didn't deserve to make more money. And now that I feel like I do deserve this, and I am empowered to feel like I can make more money, it doesn't feel as bad, or it doesn't feel bad anymore. And I mean, I don't know, I think it's a good thing to want to make more money. I think it's productive. It's empowering, and it can do good in the world. I mean, if you make more money, you can do more good with it. And so I like to encourage people not to feel bad about wanting to make more money.
Yeah, I've talked to clients through career changes, whether they're, like you said, they didn't realize they maybe had the potential or the opportunity, or they maybe just finished up some type of schooling. So maybe they just went back and got their degree or an advanced degree or something like that, and help them kind of get through that next step, think through what is possible. How do you get to that next step? And I agree. And you can then use it for good, or whatever, to kind of go back to your goals and make up for lost time, get rid of that debt that you had, that you started in your 20s, or whatever that example is. But it kind of does help set you up for additional success.
I see a theme here, going back to goals.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's the number one thing in planning for me, is setting the goals and understanding which goals you're really focusing on. It could be just as simple as a retirement goal. That maybe as simple as that, but it also may be, I want to buy a car in a couple of years, or I want to figure out how to pay off this debt, or we're going to have a family, or something along those lines. What are those financial goals, life goals that kind of really everything kind of goes back to the financial planning. I think it's the foundation and the base of what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a fun list. I enjoyed kind of talking through the lighter side, and I think we can learn a lot from these lives. And I thought it was a great list you published, and it got me thinking a lot about, what we can learn from it, some of the insights, and just a lot of these, I think, are really important as reminders to take a look at ourselves and help us to, create the motivation to create the life we want. Within, obviously working within the realities we all experience, but how can we create the life that we want without letting it just kind of happen to us? And I really enjoyed the insights that came from these. So it was fun stuff to talk through. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's fun. I hope some listeners chime in and send you some messages, and love to hear their feedback.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's wrap up. I always like to ask my guest and co-host one last question before we wrap up, and that is, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth. I would say wealth means to me is kind of freedom and financial freedom. Maybe if you're going right to the finance side, but it kind of gives you the flexibility to do what you want, when you want, and how you want to do it. So my example of wealth is kind of becoming an entrepreneur. I kind of made a pivot a couple of years ago from being an employee to starting my own business, like you, Michael, here in the financial planning world, and having the freedom to help people and work through that at kind of my direction is wealth to me.
Awesome. Hey, we just got a note from Jennifer. I'll pop it on screen. Jennifer says, "Great show." Thanks, Jennifer. Jennifer's on Facebook Live. For those who are listening to audio after the fact, we do this Facebook Live, so we get some comments. So Thanks, Jennifer, who's a member of our mastermind group. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping in. Good to see you.
Good to see.
Yeah. So, well, let's wrap up and tell people where to find you, because obviously you're a newer, less frequent voice in the show. So let's make sure people can find you if they want to hit you up. So what's your website, Dan?
Sure. My website is objectivewealthfp.com for financial planning. Again, it's objectivewealthfp.com.
All right. And you are in Arizona, but you serve clients nationally, just like I do, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Arizona. Happy to meet with people locally if they're here. But I find that most people I meet with virtually nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. There's a whole new movement of financial advisors like us that, have home offices. We meet over Zoom. There's no border issues to worry about as far as geography. We just meet in all 50 states, and it's really nice, really empowering. It's, the industry has changed rapidly recently in that respect. I think it used to be that you always look for someone local to you and, sit down in their office physically. And, for better or worse, the pandemic has accelerated the adoption of virtual work, I think, and which has been interesting for a lot of us.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to trek across town or find a couple hours. You can set aside 1 hour away on your couch and we can talk away.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll have you back again, obviously, I'm sure, in the future, but it was fun to have you as my co-host here for episode 100. So appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone, as always, for joining us today. You can find me on the web at elevationfinancial.com. Feel free to send a note or book a meeting on my website if you'd like to chat about stuff we talked about today or anything else at all. So with that, we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Thanks. All right. Recording is off. Still on Facebook Live for a minute. Jennifer, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. I know a couple of you were stopping by, so if anyone else has any comments at the last minute, feel free to pop those in. Otherwise, we will wrap up the Facebook Live as well. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.